Frank Moses wakes up. He goes to make himself a cup of coffee, then he exercises. Later, as he receives his pension check, he feels happy and calls his representative at the pension administration. Her name is Sarah. When Frank says his name, Sarah lights up with excitement. He tells her he still hasn't received his check, and she apologizes, promising to send another one. Frank asks her how her day has been, and she replies that it sucks, saying she wishes she could travel. Frank then asks her what book she's reading, and she says it's about a supermodel couple who get recruited by the CIA to stop an assassin in Milan, which she thinks sounds exciting. They end in the evening. Frank sits down to read that same book she mentioned. That night, Frank wakes up early. As he goes downstairs, armed men sneak into his house, following him silently. They attack, but Frank has already vanished. He appears behind them and quickly takes them out one by one. After fending them off, Frank hears more men outside. He prepares a trap in the kitchen, then goes to collect some money and weapons. Suddenly, his trap goes off, and his house is bombarded with gunfire. Mercenaries storm inside, but Frank welcomes them, taking down each one in a brutal fight. Once all the mercenaries are dead, he leaves. Meanwhile, Sarah is on her way home after being dropped off by a bad date. Inside her apartment, she mutters to herself that she'll never see that guy again. Suddenly, Frank appears and softly tells her it's him, Frank.
It's me, Frank.
Sarah is startled and terrified. She tells him to leave immediately, but then notices he has already packed her bag and vacuumed her apartment. She thinks he's some kind of freak. Sarah begins screaming, but Frank tries to calm her, explaining that someone is trying to kill him, and now her too. She asks why anyone would want to kill her. Frank explains that their phone conversations have been tapped and the killers know he likes her. He admits he had hoped to meet her under different circumstances, but says he hopes they can look back on this one day as an adventure. Sarah keeps screaming uncontrollably, so Frank replies that he's hungry too and asks her what they should eat. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man is preparing something sinister. He suddenly walks up to another man and strangles him. His name is William Cooper. Outside, he meets a woman who informs him he has a new target. Cooper reads the file and learns his target is a retired CIA analyst. In New Orleans, Frank and Sarah check into a motel. Frank ties Sarah to the bed for her safety. She tells him she won't press charges if he lets her go, but Frank says they're way past that. He tells her he used to work for the CIA, but she doesn't believe him. Frank then compliments her eyes and says he needs to go talk to someone. Elsewhere, an older man named Joe struggles with his TV. A woman helps him, but Joe keeps staring at her, saying she's more pleasant to watch than the TV. Suddenly, Frank appears, joking that Joe should be ashamed of himself. Frank tells Joe he was attacked by a wet team and even shows him severed fingers as proof. Joe makes a phone call and tells Frank that the same group who attacked him also killed a New York Times reporter named Stephanie Chang. Meanwhile, Cooper goes through Frank's papers and finds a pension check. At the same time, Sarah manages to free herself. Cooper suddenly sees her phone making a 911 call. Shortly after, a police officer arrives and offers to take Sarah home. She follows him, but he injects her with something. Out of nowhere, Frank appears to save her. They steal the police car. Sarah, now drugged and high, calls Frank handsome. Suddenly, a car crashes into them. Frank steps out heroically and fights off the attacker. It's Cooper. Frank gets back into the car, and Sarah finally realizes he really is CIA. Frank reports over the police radio that a suspect is driving a black SUV. He sets a trap, and Cooper walks straight into it. Police arrive and arrest him. Later, Sarah wakes up, confused about how they reached New York City. Frank tells her he hoped she'd be more understanding about the situation, but Sarah complains she hadn't expected to be kidnapped, drugged, or stuck on a date with a bald man. Frank apologizes, and Sarah thanks him for saving her. They head to Chinatown, where Frank buys duct tape. Sarah exclaims that he can't just duct tape everyone. Soon, they meet Stephanie Chang's mother, who shows them a mysterious card with numbers written on it. Frank asks where Stephanie went to college. Frank later explains to Sarah that the numbers are a classification for Asian literature. Sarah asks how he knows, and Frank surprises her by speaking fluent Chinese. They find a book with a hidden note inside. The note lists several names, most of whom have recently died mysteriously. Only one man on the list is still alive, but Frank quickly learns he too has just been murdered. At the CIA, Cooper storms into his boss's office, insisting Frank isn't just an analyst. She sends him to see the records keeper. The keeper shows him Frank's file, which is almost entirely blacked out, and reveals that Frank Moses was one of the most effective Black Ops agents in CIA history. When Frank retired, someone labeled him Red. Cooper asks what Red means, and the keeper explains it stands for Retired, Extremely Dangerous. He adds that they don't make agents like Frank anymore. Cooper smiles knowingly. Frank, meanwhile, tells Sarah they need to find a man named Marvin Boggs. They take a motorboat and arrive at a strange, isolated place. Suddenly, Marvin appears, paranoid and holding a knife dangerously close to Frank. Frank convinces him to put it down. As Marvin leads them to his hidden home, Sarah asks why he doesn't live in a normal house. Marvin explains he doesn't want eyes on him. He rants about phones, satellites, and even dentists being part of surveillance systems. Frank stops him and shows him the list of dead people. Marvin checks his files and discovers that 5 of the people, along with themselves, were all in Guatemala in 1981. Their mission had been to wipe out a village and cover it up. Marvin grows excited, yelling that he never thought he'd get to take out the pig again. But then, he becomes suspicious of Sarah, saying they should get rid of her. Frank refuses, saying he likes her. Suddenly, Marvin spots a helicopter overhead and memorizes its number. Sarah points out that another man on the list, named Singer, is scheduled to be at the air freight terminal the next day. The next morning, the trio heads to the terminal. Marvin suddenly grabs a woman, accusing her of spying and carrying a hidden camera. Frank checks her bag and proves she has no camera. Marvin feels foolish. Frank sends him to fetch the car. Soon after, they meet Singer. He explains that a reporter asked him about Guatemala, but he said nothing. Frank warns him that everyone involved in Guatemala is dead except for them. Suddenly, Marvin spots the same helicopter as before. Before they can react, Singer is shot dead. Cooper has ordered their deaths. The trio escapes, but the same woman Marvin suspected earlier reappears, shooting at them. They open Marvin's pig and fire back. The woman pulls out a rocket launcher, but Marvin skillfully shoots her and detonates the rocket midair. Frank praises Marvin's aim. The group escapes again, but Sarah starts to rest while Marvin jokes that Frank really knows how to show a girl a good time. Marvin tells Frank the only way to get answers will probably get them all killed, and they'll need serious help. Frank heads to the Russian embassy. There, an old acquaintance named Ivan greets him. At first, Ivan acts hostile, but then softens, pouring vodka. Frank asks him for help breaking into the CIA. Ivan resists, but when Frank offers him a favor in return, Ivan agrees. Sarah is thrilled she gets to come along. Together, they infiltrate the CIA. Sarah distracts guards by pretending she lost her contact lens, while Frank sneaks into a secret floor. They meet Henry, the records keeper, who helps Frank access Guatemala files. Henry also mentions that Cooper had come looking for Frank's file earlier. Just then, Frank runs into Cooper, and the two fight. Frank proves his superior training, even dislocating Cooper's arm, but Cooper manages to wound Frank with a bullet. Frank triggers the fire alarm, grabs Sarah, and mixes chemicals to create an explosion as a diversion. Disguised as a wounded man, Frank escapes with Sarah in an ambulance, where they meet Marvin and Joe. Back at CIA headquarters, Cooper's boss grows angry at his failure. Cooper admits he doesn't know why Frank is even being hunted. Frank, meanwhile, decides to visit an old ally named Victoria. She patches up his bullet wound and joins the team. Joe happily declares that the band is back together. The team then targets a gangster named Dunning, one of the last living names from the Guatemala list. They infiltrate his home, but CIA agents surround them. Cooper demands their surrender. Frank reveals the vice president ordered the hits to cover up his own war crimes in Guatemala, but Cooper refuses to believe him. A standoff follows, and one of the team members sacrifices himself to buy them time. Sarah gets captured by agents, but the others escape. Ivan reappears to help, and the team vows to expose the vice president's crimes. Frank calls Cooper and threatens his family, forcing him to protect Sarah. Later, the team infiltrates a gala where the vice president is present. Using clever traps and distractions, they manage to isolate the VP. Frank finally confronts him, reminding him of the atrocities in Guatemala. The vice president breaks down, crying. Frank forces Cooper into a trade, Sarah's life for the vice president's. In the final showdown, Cooper realizes his own boss is corrupt. He kills her and helps Frank defeat the last enemies. The vice president is exposed, and Frank is finally free. In the end, Frank and Sarah are together, while Marvin complains about being dragged into another mission in Moldova. Despite the chaos, they laugh, kiss, and move forward into another adventure.